everyone, and welcome back to Multifamily Live, where we talk all things real estate, mostly multifamily real estate, but all things real estate. And I have a very, very special guest for you today. We have the amazing Mr. Chad King. Welcome to the show, Chad.
Thanks for having me, Pili. Excited to talk shop.
Well, super excited to have you on. So for anyone who is new to the podcast, you might not know, but Chad King is one of Jason and I's amazing partners. He is one of our partners here at Multifamily Live into Seven Figure Multifamily. And I want to reintroduce him to the podcast. We haven't had him on for very many months now. And we are about to embark on a 3-day journey, May 9th, 10th, and 11th, in which Jason, Chad, and I, and our partner, Bill, are going to dive deep into our businesses. So don't miss out on that. In fact, if you want, go ahead and click on that link below, and then you can come back and listen to Chad and I discuss a little bit about him and a little bit about how and why he's so good at acquisitions. So Chad, first question, tell us how you got into real estate.
Yeah. So I started in corporate America. I was selling copiers at Xerox door to door out of college. I'm just a copier salesman. And that's pretty much it. I got degrees in finance and accounting. I had always kind of been interested in wealth and money and how, people accumulated wealth. And that led me to get those degrees. But unfortunately, college doesn't really teach you how to accumulate wealth for yourself. It just teaches you sort of the numbers and accounting for other firms and things like that. So, it never really gave me what I needed. And I didn't really get that till I started diving in and doing the self-education, which is the most important part. Is after your formal schooling, education doesn't stop, but the self-education is what's most important. So I started reading the books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and kind of caught those bugs, the whole assets versus liabilities. This was all while I was selling copiers door to door, just trying to make as much active income as possible. I didn't want to climb the corporate ladder anymore. And I jumped into real estate full time, knowing that was the path that all the wealthy people seemed like they had that same sort of thing in their portfolio. It was like all of them, I kept seeing real estate holdings, commercial real estate. So I got in, I started fixing and flipping houses sort of out of a need for active income because I left my, 6-figure job that was at Xerox, and I needed to replace that income. So flipping and wholesaling houses was the best way to make active income. But I quickly found that it was very transactional. I did it for years along with our partner, Bill Allen, and it was sort of a hamster wheel that I was trying to find a way off of. And we started taking our active income and buying small multifamily properties with our own money. So we bought a little 14 unit, and then Bill and I went 50-50 on a 21 unit. Then we bought a 27 unit and kind of ran out of liquid cash to buy these things, but didn't want to stop the velocity that we had in the commercial real estate space. So then we found out about these 506B syndications and 506C syndications, and we could pool money from our network, which again was a lot of people that were already in real estate that had active income issues that needed depreciation losses. They needed some passive income, some residual. So we started doing some syndications, buying some bigger and bigger properties, which ultimately led me to you guys, because we put a 65 unit under contract in one of your target markets. And I knew Jason from social media was in there. So I messaged him, and we ended up linking up and doing that deal together. And honestly, we've done north of like 80% of my deals that we're doing together now at this point. And we're 120 million in assets under management. Most of them are actually right here in Middle Tennessee. We have a lot of stuff in Murfreesboro, just south of Nashville, where we live. And so just scaling the commercial real estate business up. It's not just about multifamily. I think multifamily complexes are 85 to 90% of the portfolio, but we love mobile home parks. We have some storage facilities, a couple office buildings in our portfolio. And we just love the freedom that commercial real estate provides for the tax benefits, the cash flow, and the wealth building is the biggest thing for me. The net worth growth, the ability to build wealth, and capital preservation of those things.
Amazing. You gave me a lot to unpack there, Chad. So I'm going to go all the way back to when you were talking about college, because you and I love talking about financial freedom. We like talking about, and I'm actually gonna pinpoint something that you said that I want to just kind of hone in on. You said the hamster wheel. You made the correlation between life and a hamster wheel, because it sounds like you got out of high school, went to college. Like everybody says, you got to go to college, got to get that job. You jumped into corporate, and it seems like you're in this hamster wheel, that somebody's created for you, and you're running through all the little mazes that people have created for you. Talk about that moment when you realized that you had to get out of this hamster wheel. Let's take it out of context for a little bit, off the script about how we got into real estate. Why? Talk about that moment when you realized that you had to get out of this hamster wheel.
The fallacy that you need to work until you're 65 and contribute to an IRA or 401k, and then that's just what's going to set you free, and that you need to trade your best 40 years of your life so that you can live the last 10 with some substance of independence. I saw through that matrix, and I saw through that kind of that smoke screen of what's been sold to the previous generations. And, for our grandparents, when interest rates were 12, 15% in a savings account, maybe that made sense, is to save your way. But right now I couldn't buy into that story and that narrative, and I kept getting this feeling that like I could do this. I wanted to have that freedom sooner. And it was that desire to live life on my own terms and not have to answer to anybody. I'm a pretty independent person. I don't like when people tell me what to do. I have no issue with work ethic, no issue with any of that. It's funny, you leave a 9 to 5 to go be your own boss, you end up working 24/7, right? Yep. It's kind of counterintuitive, which is part of it. But I don't like being told, you just got to be careful with following what narrative, and then think about who told you that narrative, and what position are they in, and is it something that you want to follow? And for me, I looked at all the people that were telling me to stick around corporate America, do the 401k match, work until you're 60, and then you're going to have a good life after that. And I looked at them and I was like, man, I wouldn't trade places with you. I wouldn't trade places with you where you're at. Like I didn't want my sales manager at Xerox, the regional and the VPs, like I didn't want to trade places with them. And the more that I looked at that, the more I was like, well, I got to get out. Like I got to go do something that I'm responsible for my own, destiny. I get to manifest and create whatever I desire. And it's based on how hard I work, and the marketplace reward results. So as far as that moment, it was really a realization of like, this narrative has been sold to us, and it's really through the education system since 1913, when it was an industrial revolution. The industrial revolution is what created the current school system. It's based on the Rockefeller method that's really designed to create worker bees. It's designed to create drones, and it hasn't been changed. It's about the only thing since 1913 in our entire society that hasn't evolved at all, is the education system. And the reason it is if you think about it, it teaches the children to sit there for 8 hours and focus on something, even though our minds are not meant to do that. A lot of us are not designed that way. And then that stems up through graduation, when you're supposed to go now take a job and sit there for 8 hours and do your job, and then you clock out. And that, to me, like we have to kind of get away from that mentality, because I couldn't see myself doing that and buying into that same story, just because the generations before me did that. And that was kind of the tipping point for me.
So let's teach then. Let's have a teaching moment now. How are you going to teach our listeners something different? How are we going to break the system, not only for our children, but for those people who, I went to college, I worked my 9 to 5 jobs. I started bartending because I didn't want to do what everybody else was telling me to do. So but even that was a rat race. How are we going to teach people how to get out of this rat race, how to get out of this hamster wheel? What's one of the best things that you can tell somebody to get into right now? If they're at this moment where they're like, I need to get out of this hamster wheel, what would you tell them?
Well, the first thing you're doing is, if you're listening to this, you're already doing the right thing, which is you got to start to consume the right information and start to get rid of the bad information, because 90% of the issues are all in your head. And it's really just a testament to, you just have the wrong information. You have the wrong data. You have the wrong knowledge, and you have limiting beliefs in your mind that your parents have given you, your society has given you, your peers have given you, and you're in the wrong circles talking about the wrong things. So if you're listening to this, that's step one, right? Is to get into different circles. I'd say step two is you have to start acquiring assets that produce income for you that can ultimately give you an exit from whatever you're doing. So I don't recommend, especially right now, I don't recommend somebody leave a high paying W-2 job to like go jump in full time. It's, believe it or not, I know I did that, but I don't necessarily recommend it because, you can take that W-2 job and you can figure out how to make more money there and then start taking some of that and stacking it off to the side and then investing into apartment complexes, commercial real estate, and then start to build up your asset column so that when you pick your head up, 5, 7, 10 years from now you have enough streams of income from those investment opportunities, and you have enough capital events and residuals now coming back that now you can make an exit, and the exit is not going to be, super stressful like leaving a 6-figure job when you have, because I understand a lot of people are not in the same situation, where you might have a wife, kids, and a mortgage and a couple car payments. Like you can't just leap out to try this thing. So start stacking extra cash and start investing in assets, preferably ones that produce income for you, give you some tax benefits, and then ultimately can preserve your wealth and allow it to grow. And then, you'll put yourself in a position to potentially exit whatever career you may be in or job or anything that you have.
So you just told me this. I'm ready to go. I'm starting to learn more. I'm starting to listen to podcasts, and I want to learn how to become the best acquisitions person that I can possibly be. And I'm going to tell my listeners, this is with a caveat, because I know Chad King is one of the best acquisition specialists that I know and have had the pleasure working with. So the information that Chad is about to drop for you, take notes, please, because Jason and I work with Chad for a reason. And the reason is he's the best and he is a good person and I love his wife. So with those 3 reasons, Chad, what makes you so good at acquisitions?
Well, I love my wife too. So we have that.
Hi, Jen.
Yeah. So I would just say it's reps, right? So if I had to point out one thing, it's, you can gain a lot of experience just through action. And the fact of the matter is tenure does not matter. You can be in real estate for 50 years and I can be in real estate for 5 and accumulate more if I take more action. And I learned that I had a sales manager at Xerox. His name was Larry. And I learned so much stuff from him. And one of the things that he learned, he was just avid about how many doors you knocked on and his KPIs. And he knew that if he knocked on a certain amount of doors, it would lead to a certain amount of pitches, which would lead to a certain amount of contracts, which would lead to a certain amount of sales, and which would lead to a certain amount of money. And he just told me, this is your funnel, track your funnel and put as much activity at the top of the funnel as you possibly can. So when I got into real estate, I brought a lot of those principles over of just like massive action at the top of the funnel, which led to just so many conversations with potential sellers of real estate deals. And I sat on the couch with thousands and thousands of sellers I used to sit on the couch with. And when I was buying single family homes, and that translated over to commercial, and just my ability to use tactical empathy with people, to ask great questions, get people to open up about their situation, because sales is a lot more about solving problems than it is about actually selling anything. And especially in real estate, we're not selling anything. Like, we're buying stuff, we're acquiring assets. And a lot of times we're acquiring somebody's most valuable asset. That takes a heightened level of sales ability over just selling like a widget or something. So you have to acquire somebody's most valuable asset. You have to convince them that you're trustworthy, that you're going to close, that you know what you're doing, that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And the way to do that is to uncover really what motivates them. And every situation is case by case. So you can't go in with some cookie cutter, I'm going to offer this number, and because that may not be what they really want. They maybe want like a structured payment system, or they want a large down payment, and they want some annuity. Like, you just don't know until you ask the questions. So I think if I had to pinpoint just a few things, it's number one is activity at the top. You need to get some reps in. Number two is asking great questions and having tactical empathy. Tactical empathy is the ability to see somebody's situation through their eyes and how they see it, because people form assumptions all the time based on short answers from folks, when really you have to dig deep and figure out why the person is in the situation that they're in, and also what their ideal outcome is going to be. And you can't do that unless you are a good conversationalist and you know how to keep conversations going through asking questions. The best salespeople are listening twice as much as they're talking. I would argue that it's like 80-20. You should be talking 20% of the time, listening 80. And if you don't know how to formulate good questions through Socratic questioning methods, through mirroring, those are a couple of questioning methods. If you don't know how to do that, you're not going to get anybody to open up and elaborate. And if you can't get anybody to open up, elaborate, they're not going to show you where their pain points are. And if they don't show you where their pain points are, you can't solve their problem. You can't solve someone's problem if you don't know what it is. If you don't ask questions, you can't figure out what it is. And then when it comes down to providing solutions, like getting creative and thinking outside the box, not this deal can or can't be done, but how can this deal get done? And if you think outside the box about, potentially a creative way to get a deal across the finish line, those people are winning right now in the markets, because the market is a lot different than it was 24 months ago, 36 months ago. The people who can structure creative deals, those people are able to put square pegs in round holes when everybody else can't. So
can you give us an example of a time you were able to create a creative deal where somebody else couldn't?
Oh yeah. So we bought this 27 unit. There's a few of them, but we bought this 27 unit deal, and this guy had an issue with his partner, and he didn't want to pay his partner out. That was one of the reasons he wasn't selling, is because he didn't want his partner that he was estranged with, his business partner that he was estranged with, to get paid. So I was able to actually have him hold a second position note in the LLC under his own business entity that allowed me to keep him in a second position. It lowered our cash needed to close by almost 20%. We bought the building for almost nothing because we took basically the money that he was going to get at closing and rolled it back into the deal in an equity position. And he held it in a second position note. It was just secured personally. It wasn't even against the property. So the first position was from the bank. And then we sold that property 3 years later, and he was able to get his payout. And the partner only got the portion of the down payment at the closing table. And it was all done above board. And the partner was the property manager, and they were taking cash and putting it in their pocket. So he was getting bamboozled, and we were able to help him out. And the only reason he wasn't selling to anybody else, even at a higher price, he had offers at higher prices, but nobody had presented a solution where he ended up netting more money in a creative way. And we got that deal done, and that deal we almost bought it for zero out of pocket, because he held it was a $1.2 million deal. He held a $300,000 note. The bank provided a loan for like $700. I think we only had to put like $150 down to buy a $1.25 million property. So less than 10%.
$150K down to buy a $1.2 million property. So one of the reasons why I wanted you to go through that is because when you first started talking about this creative financing, and we have a lot of flippers that listen to our show, I heard the objection coming into my head. Well, you know what? You can do creative financing for these small single families, but you can't do it for a large multifamily. Boom. This is how we get the deals that we get, is because Chad and Jason and our team can go in there. And you heard what Chad said, everyone. He listens, he discovers the actual problems that sellers have. He goes directly to the seller, figures out the actual problem, and it might not be a cash flow problem. Like he said, maybe he just wants a partner out. He figures it out, and he gets the deal done that way. So get in there, pick up the phone, call people, and understand what their actual problem is. And that's how you get to the deal. So thank you for that, Chad.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And then we have other deals that you could do this on seller held first positions, seller held seconds. You can do this on, we have a deal that we bought for $8.3 million that we bought with Jason and Pili. And Bill was in that one too. And he held a $6.1 million note. We raised $2.2 million. So we didn't have to even go to a bank to do that deal. Like, he had equity in there, and he held it at 4 years IO with 3.5% interest rate, which you can't get anymore, but that was back in the day. But to the point of, like, we didn't have a credit check. We didn't have to go to a bank. We didn't have to do any of that. So if you have those objections running through your head of, oh, my credit's in the tank, or I don't have the net worth to get this. Well, guess what? Like, that deal got done strictly through trust, and there was no net worth requirement. There was no liquidity requirements. There was no bank underwriting. There was nothing. And it was an $8.3 million deal. So you can do, there has to be, a lot of times there has to be some equity in the property. So you're not going to be able to structure a creative offer if they're upside down on equity, right? But if there is some equity in the property, you can get as creative as possible. And we try and do it on almost every offer that we make. If there's equity, is we try and leverage that equity somehow to benefit the deal, because it benefits both sides, right? Because you go in and right now, if you go in and you give somebody cash for their property, or the cash equivalent, like a bank loan, and you cash them out, you're giving them a problem, right? You give them, number one, a tax problem that they now have to go solve. They have to go identify a 1031 and potentially put their money in another investment vehicle that's not as desirable. They have to go find another property that they don't like or trust as much as the one that they're currently in. So it's actually creating a problem when you cash somebody out versus giving them an opportunity to stay in the deal somehow creatively, and still get some residual payments, because a lot of them do like that monthly. They just want to be done with the management of it and the headaches of it. So you can take those off their plate and still sometimes get them a similar monthly payment.
I don't think enough real estate investors, even multifamily real estate investors, understand that when they go to sellers, that they don't understand that offering them like even what the building's worth creates another problem. But you know what? I'm going to stop you here, Chad, because I want folks to know where to find you. Like, where can they find more of this type of teaching? Because you just broke down how you started off in college as a Xerox salesman, walked through how you started flipping and wholesaling, cut your teeth there, and now you're doing millions of dollars in deals with little. I mean, considering 1.2, 150,000 down. That's change in like comparison to paying 20% down for that deal. So how can more people figure out how to do deals the way Chad King does it?
Pili mentioned the event that we're doing May 9th, 10th, and 11th, Multifamily Live. We're going to spend 3 days. I mean, we've been on here for 25 minutes. Like, we're going to spend 3 full days diving into how we're doing this stuff, how we're finding them, how we're underwriting them, how we're structuring them, how we're negotiating them, how we're putting them together, how we're raising the capital for them. So if you have any interest, I would recommend you come to that. The one thing she didn't mention is it's 100% virtual. And it is more of a virtual experience. It's not like a Zoom meeting that we're talking to you for 3 days. So it is an experience, very interactive. And you can do it from your own home. So just set aside the time. I would come to that event is the first thing if you're interested in this stuff. And the second thing is, just connect with me on Facebook, on Instagram. Just connect with me. We do have a coaching company that we're doing, but whether you join that or not, I just want everybody to achieve success for themselves, whatever that number or whatever that looks like for you. So I try and put out as much free content that helps. And the event is, we're going to be diving in a lot. So I think it's a little over a month. What are we like? Oh my gosh, we're 3 weeks away.
We're 3 weeks. 3 weeks away. So
goodness,
hit that link below, everyone. Get taught by Chad. Talk to me, talk to Jason. You're going to have this one-on-one guidance for 3 consecutive days. You cannot not do this. And I think, Chad, we have to get you back on the podcast before this thing goes down. So how many of you, and if you're driving, don't raise your hand, but you can raise your hand if you're running. Raise your hand, get excited. How many of you want Chad King back on here? And I know you're all saying yes. So we're going to get Chad King back on here. But before we let him go for this time, Chad, if you had one more thing to say to the listeners to get them going right now, like right this minute, what would you tell them?
To get them going?
Get them going. Get them charged up. Get them going. Taking the next step. What would that be?
My motivation style is I think I'm kind of on I don't know if I'm just weird or I'm outlandish or whatever it may be, but I'm kind of on the other side of the spectrum when it comes to motivating you, because I'm not like a jump up and down, foo-foo, everything's going to be great.
You can leave that to me. Leave that to me. I'll jump up and down, do the push-ups.
Yeah, my thing is just, you better hurry up, because I think that the debt bubble is going to pop soon. So like, if you want an excuse to get out of the freaking bed and start doing this, why don't you go pull up the US national debt clock, and why don't you watch that ticker go up and watch how rapidly that thing is climbing, and realize that my kids, your kids are going to have to absorb that bubble pop at some point. And I am so gung-ho that the fact that the government is so upside down, backwards, corrupt, that it's that circus is going to pack in at some point in our lifetime, potentially sooner rather than later. And when I say sooner, I mean maybe by the end of this decade. So you have, in my opinion, like probably a 5 to 7 year window to achieve wealth for yourself before it's going to be next to impossible to do so. So if you want any motivation, why don't you think about by the year 2032, why don't you think about your cash will be absolutely worth nothing. And if you don't have some hard assets, preferably ones that produce income, whatever that income may be at the time, whether it's cash or Ethereum, Bitcoin, who knows what it could be. But if you don't have hard assets, things that are real, things that you can see, touch, feel, that people need to live in. That's why I'm in the shelter business. Food, water, shelter, the 3 essentials. I'm not in the food and water business, but I am in the shelter business. And if you don't own some hard assets where people need to live, you're not going to sustain, and you're not going to make it through any sort of real depression. Because what we're seeing right now is a minor recession. We haven't even seen the real effects of all of the money laundering and the corporates, the massive, military industrial complex greed and inflation and all that stuff that has been going on for the last 20 years. We haven't even seen the real harsh results of that debt bubble and what that's actually going to do. And when you start to wake up to the fact that nobody is coming to save you, like nobody's coming to save you. I don't care if Trump gets in November, like he's only going to kick the can down the road. Like nobody's coming to save you. And you have got to wake up and do this for yourself and your family, because if not you, then who? Like who is going to build wealth for your family and protect them fiscally when shit hits the fan? And that's my motivation to you, is like, things are not going to be all right.
No, that is
things are not going to be all right.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my team put the link down in the show notes.
Well, that's my motivation.
Right next to Chad King's Instagram, we're going to put the link for the US debt clock, because it is, if you have not taken a look at this thing, you got to. I don't think people realize what's going to happen when that curtain gets lifted and everybody realizes, wow, this is all BS. Like smoke and mirrors. So check out the US debt clock. Yeah. Follow Chad King on Instagram, and then tap that link and come to our 3-day conference. It's not going to solve all your problems. We're not selling smoke and mirrors. We're not selling snake oil.
Yeah.
But what we will give you is how we're doing it, how we have partnered up, and how we have figured out how to create wealth for ourselves. And we want to share it with you for 3 days, virtually. Don't even have to get on an airplane. Come, hang out with us for 3 days. From your couch, from your office, wherever you need to come and hang out with us. So, and we're going to have Chad King back. So come back to the podcast and listen about, Chad, maybe I'm going to let you take over the podcast for a session. Won't that be fun?
I don't know if you want me to do that. Listen, I am passionate about everybody that wants to. I want to help people that want to help themselves. And I'm very adamant about that. Like, we are lighthouses. We're not tugboats. Mm-hmm. If you are not bought in to yourself, like, we're not going to come out and save you. But we are lighthouses in the fact that if you're seeking financial freedom, if you're seeking wealth for yourself and you are actively working towards it and you're willing to put in the work, we will give you the information. And I'm passionate about everybody who wants to help themselves and achieve wealth for themselves, giving them the information and experience that I've acquired over the last decade in real estate to, like, help them do it, because there's a blueprint and we all have it. Like, and it's not a secret. It's out there. Like, here's the blueprint, but nobody's going to do it for you. So come to the event. If you're really serious about building wealth for yourself and your family, May 9th, 10th, and 11th, come hang out with us for 3 days. I guarantee it'll be worth your time.
Well, thank you, Chad. And thank you to all my listeners today. This was a pleasure. I hope you are pumped, and I hope you click on all those links, because they're going to change your life. So much aloha, so much love, so much peace in your day, and so much thought. I'm going to add that to this podcast. So much thought in your day. Go click those links, have a think about where you are, and reach out. Aloha.